Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. It's Bear here. And in today's video, I've been reminded over the last week through several different conversations I've had at just the level of resistance people have to understanding or even accepting that how much influence our early childhood has on who we are as adults. Especially when we come from an insecure childhood base, or a base of childhood trauma, removal trauma, placement trauma, abandonment, abuse, neglect, and harm, just how much that impacts all that we choose to do, see, and how we interact, the priorities we create in everything we do. It always surprises me at the level of resistance people have. And most don't reach a place where they start to accept that until they're later in life. And I hope with these videos we can start to open the door to change that. So that if younger people get to watch these videos, you just may take that moment and go, hang on, if I continue to pursue trying to change my life, but still walking the same steps as I did before, I will always reach the same outcome as I did before until I learn and understand and actually change how I approach things. So let's take the journey together and explore through this video some of the ways our nervous system learns to shape and interpret and understand, and it will remain on those paths until we take the time to build the connections we need to have the experiences to change them.
If chaos, unpredictability, or emotional unavailability defined your early bonds, then a calm, consistent, and present partner or friend is something you haven't experienced yet, something new. Sounds like a breath of fresh air, right? But for your nervous system, calm, steady connection can feel like uncharted territory. You were never given a reliable guide for how to trust it, how to move through it, or how to feel safe within it. So the unfamiliar can register not as possibility, but as threat. That is why you may find yourself repeatedly drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable, avoidant, or even abusive. Not because you are broken, but because your body is trying to solve an old story with a very old map. You know how to survive in what is familiar. But anything new asks for change, and change can feel unbearably risky. Not simply because you fear getting hurt, though that may be how you would explain it. More deeply, it is because children need safe adults to show them how to enter new environments, how to explore, and how to remain safe. If the people who were meant to teach you instead harmed you, misled you, or were simply absent, then new ways of relating can feel overwhelming from the very start. So accepting something different, a new idea, a new kind of relationship, a new way of seeing yourself, can feel like too much to hold, let alone trust.
In understanding the impact early childhood adversity has and how that carries through to when we're adults, as I've said in numerous videos, the way our nervous system shaped to interpret the world around us when we were very, very little is what our nervous system is conditioned to expect. And the strategies and survival states and all the techniques we have and solutions and prefixes and problem-solving ideas, as well as what we're trying to seek to get out of that place, are all kind of meshed together. Now, because it comes down to what's referred to often as developmental trauma and early childhood trauma, because as an adult, we do everything we can to block that out, and becomes difficult even for us to be able to remember that. It's hard to understand or accept that when we want to try to bring something new in, or if we have a person, a friend or an associate or a therapist or someone we're talking to is putting perspectives forward or pointing out to us things that we may want to consider to help change or better our lives, or things we need to recognize within us. We find that threatening not only because it puts us in a position of feeling like we're attacked, but there's also that part of our nervous system that goes, well, I need a parent or a responsible adult to guide me through the change. Because that's how we're biologically designed as human beings, to learn from the adults around us growing up. And that mechanism is buried within the trauma that we've experienced. And when the trauma responses are triggered within our nervous system, a large part of our neurophysiology is back at those moments and at that age. And one of the difficulties as an adult is to accept that what a little child would want as the support and recognition or needs met to be able to open up to the idea that I can become safe enough to change hasn't changed from when you were 3, 4, 5 years old. And that's one of the obstacles that I was reminded of, as I said, in several conversations this week in the beginning of this video, is people don't want to go there. They go, I'm an adult, I'm different, I'm more complex, I know and understand these things. And I kept saying, but you understand the words. But we cannot talk to our nervous system. We need to set up an ecology to give us the experiences so that our nervous system can change. We cannot give our nervous system and how we feel and interpret things instructions. We need to have safe experiences, and several of them, to actually change the core structures of how we perceive, to where our nervous system can move out of being trapped in the trauma stored from way back then and into a new environment now.
When a child lives under chronic stress, cortisol repeatedly floods the developing brain. Over time, this can affect the hippocampus, the structure that helps place memories in context and distinguish the past from the present. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that helps us pause, reflect, and make sense of what is happening, can go offline during moments of emotional overwhelm. When we are triggered, anxious, or unsure, the very system that could help steady us becomes harder to access. This is why, in adulthood, we can end up floundering, looking for someone or something to tell us what to do, while also finding trust painfully difficult. We may leap too quickly, handing over responsibility for the outcome to whoever catches us. Or more often, we shut down. We go flat. We become emotionally gray. This is also where dissociation becomes a silent saboteur of intimacy. When trauma is overwhelming, the brain may protect itself by partially exiting the body, shifting into a dorsal vagal shutdown state, and creating the numbing fog that helps a person endure what feels unbearable. As an adult, that same survival circuit can activate the moment genuine closeness is required, when a partner reaches for emotional contact, or when a friend says something that cuts too close, or when your child looks at you and you don't know what to do. You may suddenly feel foggy, unreal, unable to speak, or disconnected from your own body. You are not choosing to stonewall, separate, or become distant. A deeply ingrained survival response is interrupting your ability to stay present. But to the other person, it can feel like abandonment, rejection, or worse, that you simply don't care. Then another rupture follows, and the cycle deepens. Furthermore, the very chemistry of bonding can be altered. Oxytocin, the hormone that normally calms the amygdala and signals safe person, can have a paradoxical effect. For a brain that learned that attachment figures are dangerous, oxytocin release may actually increase vigilance, signaling that you are now dangerously vulnerable and exposed. Intimacy, on a chemical level, feels dysregulating, and the dopamine reward pathways that make a loved one's smile feel like a warm sun may be blunted or numb, sabotaging, hijacking the recognition and feelings and motivation to sustain a bond, to do the small repair work, the little reminders that a person is seen and valued. Attachment and connection becomes effortful, often feeling like a source of pain rather than peace, and without the right kind of support. Isolation can become the only refuge and the commonly accepted outcome.
The path to understanding this, to valuing this, due to the layers and complexity, can become very, very overwhelming and can also become very, very threatening. Also, like I said in the beginning of this video, the resistance people have to accepting this is because so often anything that questions what we've said or how we feel or who we are or the beliefs we have, we take as a threat or we take as an attack. Any response that we have from those that are close to us that is we perceive as negative, we respond to as a threat. and our response, threat responses become heightened. Higher brain function shuts down. We go into fight, we go into flight, we go into freeze, we go into shutdown. We feed this never-ending cycle of trigger and response, trigger and response. And I've watched this break beautiful families apart because they were simply not given the tools or resources or understandings, the information to be able to understand what is going on in a non-threatening way. But if we take it back to the most simplest understanding, if we inherit a set of instructions on how to interpret the world, and we take those instructions and we embed them as our own responses to how to interpret the world, the belief in who we are, how we identify ourselves in the first few years of our life, and that runs the show. If we understand that our physiology, the brain and body and nervous system will alter to meet the requirements to remain in that survival place and that interpretation, we will shape ourselves physiologically to function within that environment. And that means other aspects, because they're not used or they just simply don't form, are not present. When you start to explore the understandings around neuroplasticity and structures and processes within us like that, it shows us that if our environment has changed from the first beginnings of our life, say we've gotten out of that abusive environment, that abusive situation, we've moved to another country, and we're trying to build a life, we have to show and teach our nervous system that we are in a different place, because our nervous system will still assess everything the same way it did in the previous environment and our abusive environment of our childhood, until we engage with it and engage presently within the experiences for our nervous system to develop new connections through neuroplasticity to alter how the brain perceives and responds, and to broaden our capacity to take in more understandings without going into threat. If we can understand that and get to that place, then that can help empower us to have the courage to take those steps, whether we've moved to another country or not. I know this gets challenging and I know this gets threatening. I've spent decades as a therapist hitting this same wall in countless numbers of conversations. But if we can get to that most basic understanding of that we were shaped to a certain mold, and then if we take that mold, throw it away because we don't want to live that mold, we're going to have to reshape ourselves to fit into a different environment, a different mold. If we can understand that and then accept that we can only do that through experiences, this is the largest hurdle to get people to understand. You cannot talk to your nervous system. You cannot talk to your physiological responses to threat. We need to have experiences to change them. If we can get to that and focus on valuing the experiences and shaping the ecology around us to have the experiences and lots of them, we can move out of survival. We can create the environment to create meaningful change and relearn and learn the skills we need to be able to build the life we deserve. As always, I love your guys' comments, feedback, and support for the channel. Please be mindful, please be safe, please be respectful, and I will see you all next time.